right, welcome and good afternoon to all our registrants, and welcome you once again to Eastern Credit Union's webinar entitled Reaching Millennials as a Credit Union. This webinar will help define the meaning of the term millennial, explain our way of thinking, circumstance and priorities, how it impacts on the credit union movement, and seek to find ways and means to bridge the gap between millennials and the credit union. My name is Jamal Lewis, Public Relations Officer at Eastern Credit Union, and I will be your moderator for this afternoon's webinar. On our distinguished panel, please allow me, to extend warm welcome to Dr. Genevieve Philip Durham. Dr. Durham is an academic and research consultant in the field of international relations. She has published on topics such as resilience, governance, and diversification for development in Caribbean small island, developing states and territories. We have Ms. Amanda Vincent. Amanda holds the position of branch manager at Eastern Credit Union and is passionate about the education and guiding others on their career journey. Amanda is a proud graduate of the University of the West Indies, Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business, and the Carib DE program. Next up, we have Ms. Nkise Joseph Beniku. Nkise has been a staff member of Eastern Credit Union for the past 13 years. She currently holds the position of Sales Officer attached to our very dynamic marketing department, and during her tenure at Eastern, she has obtained an Associate of Science degree in Business Management from the University of the West Indies School of Business and Applied Studies, formerly Roytech. Ms. Renice Francis. Ms. Francis is a developer, content management for an e-learning platform where she researches, designs, and develops custom learning and development content. She graduated with a bachelor's in media and communication and will soon hold her master's in human resource management. And finally, Mr. Daniel Francis. Mr. Francis is an author and entrepreneur from Trinidad and Tobago. Over the past 3 years, he has served as a personal development coach under Rebid Limited. Daniel's work targets millennials and helps them tap into their full potential. We will start this evening's webinar with some preliminary questions asked by you, the registrants, which we will be answering and will be discussed by the panel. We will invite you to ask questions at any time during this webinar by clicking on the question mark on the right side of the panel. We may not be able to answer all questions, but we'll try our best to do so within the next 60 minutes. You may also raise your hand electronically by clicking on the hand symbol, and time permitted, your microphone will be unmuted for you to ask a brief question. A post-webinar survey will also be sent out, which you are kindly asked to complete. Members of our listening audience are invited to download the handouts, which contain bios of our panel, information on Mr. Francis's book, as well as relevant contact information for Eastern services. To formally start off this evening's proceedings, Mr. Francis, could you please define for us what is a millennial?
Yeah, no problem. So basically, a millennial is anyone born between the ages, the time period of 1981 to 1996. That 1996 has some gray area, so I like to say plus or minus 2 years for anybody who wants to pull an article on me. Yeah, so that's basic. But even in my book, I kind of break it up. You have the early millennial, the middle millennial, and the late millennial, because not all millennials were created the same way. So the early millennials more or less fall within that 24 to 27 age range. You find the middle millennial falls within the 28 to 32, and the late millennials, well, that's the rest, so that's 33 to 39. And they all kind of hold their own type of challenges based upon the period that they were born in.
Okay, so in light of your book, what gave you the inspiration or what motivated you to write this book about the millennial mind?
Basically, I was sitting one day, I think it was Republic Day actually, when I usually throwing events. So it was the first time we didn't have an event, and I was just enjoying the day. And I was thinking about all the work I've been doing with young people And I've noticed that there was a trend when it came with the behaviors that they were doing. And I felt as though that they all suffered from similar core issues. And I kept trying to figure out a way to now reach more persons, because I mean, I would do one-on-one consultations, I would do group sessions, but I wanted to find a way to reach more people, because I felt as though there's a connectedness between millennial challenges and the solutions that are based on them. Because it's one thing when I sit down with a millennial and I hear their issue, and they think that, wow, this is something that's unique to me. No one else is going through this, and I feel bad for even having to see someone to talk about this. And it kind of all came to me all at once on that day, where I realized, it just makes sense to write a book. For one, I can show millennials that, one, you're not alone. The challenges you're facing, we're all right there with you. We all have our own problems, we have our own challenges, and they're all stemming from similar places. So that was, one reason I wanted to write it. And two, I want to show that in spite of the decisions that you're making right now, and where maybe you might feel stuck or you want more, there are ways around it. And it is linked to the way you're conditioned in the past, whatever experiences you went through, however you're brought up, and all these different aspects of your environment make you the person that you are today. And it's really important to do that introspection to see, okay, what happened in my past that makes me act this way, that makes me do these things, whether positive or negative. And especially for the negative sides, what can you do to do better? So that's kind of how the book came together.
Right. Without disclosing too much information, do you have any hidden gems inside that book that we should be that you want to share with us? Of course, I know I know. Of course, the book will be available. It's available to download, right?
Yes. On my page right now, rebityouth.com, you can actually download the first 2 chapters for free, so you can check it out. Even when you go on Amazon, they do that, where you can read the first 2 chapters. But for me, not even for me, based upon the feedback I've been getting, so I had a real issue writing a book, in that I started each chapter with a story, and it might have been my story, a story of a client I had, or something I saw, but I felt like I wanted to put the story in there so that persons can draw the parallel from their own lives, so that they can see, okay, he's giving a story, it's based on a challenge, how does this fit in my life? But it's impossible to get everyone's story. So the feedback I've been getting that I'm really thankful for is that people love the exercises at the end of each chapter, because that's something I definitely had to put in there, where it is, you read the chapter, you get an idea, you see those challenges, you start putting those thoughts together about, okay, he said that, this is how it is in my life, but what does that mean for how I act right now? And how do I practically put these steps in place so that I can help myself? So that's why I made sure to put exercises at the end, so that you can actually go through the words, do your guided introspection, and get those answers. So it's not just a read, but it's you read it and you can actually make tangible steps forward.
So it's actually you're keeping the reader engaged right through each chapter. I like that. I like that approach, because us millennials, after the introduction, if this not catching, I looking to go somewhere else. To be quite honest with you. So having that activity at the end, it really keeps the reader engaged. And I would just like to shift a little bit to Dr. Durham. How would you like to share your insights into how millennials think, and what do they do or say differently to that of, let's say, the baby boomer? And why should this matter at all to the credit union sector?
Thanks, Mr. Lewis. I think to start off, I could kind of give some of the common stereotypes in terms of the differences between baby boomers and millennials, which would include one generation favored hard work and thought that would eventually pay off, versus instant gratification or entitlement to the best job or the best salary. For the baby boomers, they consider the importance of financial stability and fiscal discipline, versus the hyper consumerism and so on that is characteristic of some millennials, and it's also one of the most highly indebted generations. Also, we have the values associated with institutional knowledge and the experience versus experience, and experience versus the values associated with education and innovation, and millennials who learn by doing. And the final point, the final stereotype, or the point I want to illustrate is that one generation might be less technologically inclined than the other, preferring in-person banking, when the other may consider online banking and may prefer online banking apps. Now, if you look at it in terms of language, we can analyze it accordingly. So for baby boomers, English may have been their predominant language at that time. So the organizations would have developed based on that understanding. But for millennials now, there are now a variety of languages and they often tend to be fluent in most of them. So it's impossible to communicate with them in English only. So we must communicate in the languages that they understand. And whereas a radio advertisement or a print ad in the media might catch the attention of a baby boomer, you would find that you don't have that same effect for millennials. So this means when you engage them in their multiple languages, you don't want to ostracize your other audiences, but millennials are likely to be the ones buying their first homes, going to Uber Soca Cruise now rather than later when they retire or pursuing tertiary education. So this is where I think digital intelligence and content creation becomes important, and the credit union has to be responsive to that. So for instance, meme culture, data gathering using online polls on your social media pages, using parodies from contemporary or familiar contexts, or closed WhatsApp groups where you could share your frequently asked questions and so on. And as I said, none of this is suggesting that you ignore your youth members or your more gentrified members, but you're ensuring that your marketing and engagement tools are leveraged to appeal to what could be your largest target audience, that being millennials.
So in a case like that, Dr. Durham, I mean, the baby boomers, they are more in tune with the credit union. You know, they believe in the credit union
They
because
know
they have
about the credit union philosophy.
they want to continue to have their money in the book. They're more into the passbook. Once they don't have that
They want their passbook. Yes,
once that
they want
passbook is
their
not
passbook.
updated, they're not into the online thing at all. So
Yeah,
it's
but
now
it's not entirely that we can't relate to them, because remember, our parents or grandparents might be baby boomers. So
yes.
we can relate. So it's about, really bridging that gap and finding a way to communicate and say to them, we're not using the passbooks anymore, but this is what we are doing. And this is why we choose to go this way. And this is how it can help you going forward.
Yeah, so it's just about bridging that gap here. Ms. Francis, you wanted to add something on that topic there. I see you smiling there with that.
And I just think that Mrs. Durham was just spot on, because really it's a culture change that's happening, and no one should really be left behind. And with an institution such as Eastern, the institution has been around for quite some time, and we understand the clientele, that is being catered to. But of course, with all these technological shifts, people talk about the fourth industrial revolution, but it's not something that's coming, it's already here. What are we doing to prepare the workforce that is coming up? So this forum right now is about millennials, but my son is a Gen Z, and he's coming up, and things are going to change. So while we are catering to the baby boomers and not leaving them behind, ensuring that the millennials are right on track, we still have to prepare for the next 5-10 years for those who are coming up as well. So, spot on.
And I am glad that you would have brought in Gen Z, because one of the concerns coming out of the membership was that in years gone by, and I think Mrs. Beniku could answer this question, in years gone by, Eastern had a very prolific service in where our officers will visit these schools, and both primary and tertiary and secondary, and to engage our members. A lot of us from who are the what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of us millennials, well, I can speak for myself, we would have become Eastern Credit Union through this whole school service. Is that something that Eastern is really looking to go back into? I know a lot of people are saying that the schools are no longer being visited by Eastern Credit Union representatives. What's the company's stance on this?
Yes. So thank you so much, Jamal. The answer to that question is yes, right? At present, Eastern Credit Union has a very active team of youth officers that reach out to specific geographical areas in an effort to streamline the recruitment of new schools to the existing school program. Whilst at present, we have not yet brought on all schools in the country. That is our long-term objective, right? Now, when we visit schools, presentations will be done to students, staff, as well as other persons interested in becoming members, right? Basically, what these presentations would be about, telling members exactly what Eastern Credit Union can do for them in terms of how we would make their money work. Right? At present, we have the $E program that provides students with a tangible incentive to save consistently as they build their shared capital. Right? As it relates to the continuity of our school program, when a transition to primary secondary school, and that school is not yet on the program, for example, we would make contact with the principal as a first step to recruiting the school into our program. If for some reason it does not materialize, ECU is in the process of introducing a youth ATM card. Now, this is something that the youths would love, management of their own money, right? And now, with the use of this card, it would allow the students the opportunity to manage their finances as well as put into practice what they would have learned in the presentations done by the officers who would have visited the school.
So basically, we get in a holistic approach because now we have the baby boomers on lock, as they normally say. The millennials,
Right.
we're now trying to engage them a little more and we're preparing for Gen Z. And I think by
That's
giving these youth ATM cards, it gives them that financial freedom, that okay,
yes.
they're putting the money, even though they are probably getting the money from their parents. We are teaching them to, be responsible enough to whether deposit your money every week. And yeah, you might want to withdraw some money, but you just have that freedom there. As a branch manager, Miss Vincent, how does this affect your branch per se or the branch network in terms of giving the millennials and Gen Z the access or to come into the credit union and transact business? What do you think? Sorry, Miss Vincent, we're not hearing you. No, I'm not hearing Miss Vincent.
She might have to unmute or take off her headphones.
Yeah. And whilst Miss Vincent sorts that out, I would just like to switch a little bit again to Miss Francis. It has been said that millennials are loyal to convenience or price reduction and would easily switch to a new brand. Yes, this is the end thing at this point in time, but if person B comes with something new, they immediately go to that. Like there's no real sense of loyalty. How, from your perspective, what what can be made of that, and how can we make the link to the credit union as it is right now? They have millennials more gravitated towards the banks. What can Eastern Credit Union do to attract the millennials to the credit union?
Thank you for your question. I want to bring a few examples. So we have Caesar's Army. Right now, they are the fad. They've been the fad for a couple of years. We also have Tribe. When people think of playing mass, that's a name that's synonymous with Carnival. And you don't find those people leaving those brands very often. Same as iPhone. They're very much attached to these brands. But this year, Yup Life came and gave Caesar's Army some competition. So what would have happened there? They came with a better price with almost the same product, right? For me, cost and product or service availability and offering, really, for me, it determines the millennials' response to brand loyalty. And it's simple because it's about time and money. Millennials enjoy their time. Even when their time is spent, quote unquote, doing nothing, they prefer to do nothing than have that time taken away from them. And it's so funny because that time actually oftentimes creates an avenue for creativity for millennials, right? And that's something I think is underrated. But millennials remain loyal, I would say, and maintain the business with the old friendly brand that they've come to know because their families would have taken them through it. But they still source new brands. So you may have had an account with Eastern because you might have gone through the school system, or your mom, your dad, your granny, they sign you up with Eastern. But then you might decide, well, I'm looking for something else that better meets my needs, So is it really brand loyalty, or are you being loyal to your family because you don't want to really deviate from what your family knows, right? So you become comfortable with that. So that's a question you could ask there. So, for me, given that most persons have that healthy relationship with their family based on what they know, I think the question is more so geared to, are you being loyal to your brand, or are you being loyal to your family? Now, for credit unions, I think it's a radical shift. And when I say radical, I mean very, very radical. I mentioned the fourth industrial revolution a while ago. We have things like technology, automation, AI, robotics. Right now, we have a new world of work. The baby boomers were so accustomed to and comfortable with permanence in jobs, but now we have contractual work, we have work from home, so it's all these new facets that are coming into play. How is Eastern Credit Union and just credit unions on a whole going to operate with those influencers to move faster towards technology? And when I say faster towards technology, I mean things such as creating a mobile app, having online banking, transferring monies not only within the credit union, across accounts, but also across different credit unions. You see, because my job is very tasking. And as a content manager, I spend a lot of time just researching and building content. And it's difficult for me to spend any sort of excessive time in the bank. So I do a lot of, of my work on apps and on websites. And if the credit union comes on board with that, it makes life easier for me. And not just me, but other millennials as well. But of course, I know that Eastern Credit unions are governed by different laws and regulations. So I think a key there is to advocate for that implementation of the outstanding sections of the Electronic Transaction Act. So, there's some things that were passed, but some things are still outstanding. So we have electronic signatures, authentication. So those are just, for me, just a couple tidbits as to how you could do it. Move towards really engaging with the influences of the fourth industrial revolution. Get your mobile app running, your website running, make it easier for millennials to just access anywhere, anytime, 24/7, and definitely work on the regulations aspect of it, because I know credit unions are governed by that.
Just to add, if I may, through you, Mr.
Sure,
Lewis.
please, Dr. Dram.
So what Renice is saying, I think one of the good things here is that we're able to identify and name the challenge, which is brand loyalty. And that means Eastern has a clear opportunity to chart a way forward and to begin thinking about how to create buy-in and loyalty. And based on Mrs. Benico's presentation, I would say I don't know of any other credit union that has youth officers doing the type of outreach that Eastern is doing and has been doing in schools. And this is since I was a child, so you have the opportunity there to follow the ones who are excelling academically and otherwise, and to find ways to keep them engaged and involved as the time progresses. Also, for me personally, as a millennial, I would appreciate the ability, for instance, to take a photo of a check and deposit it, or to complete my loan form remotely and use my e-signature, as Ms. Francis is saying. But obviously, she alluded to the legislative constraints in terms of what credit unions can and can't do. But I think even by educating your members about these constraints, you could build loyalty, because you have the ability there to communicate openly with them and to let them know, okay, policy X or Y is not because we're not innovative or we don't want to meet the need of our membership. but we simply don't have the room to maneuver based on the named legislative frameworks, which of course I agree you have the opportunity to lobby and to advocate. And you might think it's understood that you're not in control of implementation, but I don't think you should take it for granted that your membership knows this, and Eastern shouldn't miss the opportunity to highlight the advocacy efforts to them in terms of what you're doing to get these legislations passed to make things more convenient for your membership.
It's almost like if you're employing Eastern Credit Union to start a little revolution to enact some sort of change in the Cooperative Act, Dr. I'm not too sure we're going to deal with that, but it is a very good point, and I think let me just acknowledge I have a raised hand here from Miss Camila Gooding. Miss Gooding, if it is you want to ask a question, I'm going to unmute your mic now so that you could go ahead and do so, Miss Gooding. Miss Gooding, are you hearing me? Okay, so we're going to move on a little bit. Probably she will come back a little later on. Miss Vincent, have you sorted out yourself? Can we hear you now? No, we're not hearing you. No. We want to get some input from you, Miss Vincent. 1 second. Yes, not a problem. Okay. Yeah. So just moving on. As we mentioned something before, and it is prevalent right now in terms of contract work. So, Mrs. Beniku, as a contract worker, let's say I have a contract for 6 months or a contract for a year, am I still able as a member to come in and get a loan? Seeing that I may want to purchase a vehicle, let's say, but I'm only on a year-to-year contract. What happens there? Now, it's very hard for us as millennials to go out there and get permanent jobs. Most of the jobs right now are contract, especially now in this COVID period. The future is very uncertain. So as a contract worker, what does Eastern Credit Union have to offer us?
Thank you so much again, Mal. As it is right now, to be able to get a loan being on a contract, it is possible. Yes, it is possible. Once you are able to prove that you are on continuous employment. Now, you may have a contract on a year-to-year basis, but it has been renewed for, let's say, 3 to 4 instances. We are able to then say, okay, yes, we'd be willing to extend our credit facilities to you. So yes, it is possible.
Does the member need to do anything special to access these loans? Do I have to bring some additional security? Yes. Do I have to do anything special to access these loans?
Based on the type of loan and based on the value, we would recommend that you have a co-maker, for example. So if it is you are a contract worker, you're interested in buying one of those high-end vehicles, I would say Kia Cerato, right? And
yes.
Those vehicles are a bit pricey. Now, you are on contract, for example, for a year, and your contract has only been renewed twice, right? So that isn't, from experience as a loan officer, that isn't enough of a time period to say that we'd be willing to extend the credit facility for 7 years to you, right? So what we may do in this instance is to get a bit more information from you. And in that instance, I would recommend that you get a co-maker, someone who's in good standing with the credit union, who would be able to take the loan with you. And you would win both ways, basically.
Yes, I like how that is sounding. Now, Dr. Durham, I'd just like to turn this question over to you. What strategies, as you were advocating before about the legislation change and things like that, what strategies do you think Eastern Credit Union could adopt to encourage millennials to start their own financial journey?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute my mic. I think, of course, sooner is better than later. The same can be said for your educational journey or your home ownership journey. Sooner is ideal, and I'm an idealist, but I think we really need to explore this with our realist lens. And the reality is that many millennials, they live paycheck to paycheck, and the data clearly illustrates the high indebtedness that they face. So I would want to encourage those who may be off to a late start. Don't think because you didn't have an early start, you shouldn't eventually start. I see many organizations now are taking the route of having ambassadors and influencers, and I think now is the opportune time for Eastern to have a first mover advantage in this arena. So this is not to say that I would replace your marketing unit or change around your education and sensitization efforts, but instead it would supplement it. And I know that Eastern provides scholarships and bursaries at the primary as well as tertiary levels. So some of these same recipients could become ambassadors or influencers, of course, with the relevant guidance and training. And I think if that is part of your marketing trajectory, allowing millennials who benefited from the organization, whether it's by their Kia Sorrento, as Ms. Beniku said, or via scholarship or purchasing their first home, if you allow them to convey a message about becoming financially literate or about how saving and investing with Eastern has worked for them as early as an SEA student, it could encourage other millennials to buy in and begin their financial journey and become a part of the movement. And of course, it will also be a catalyst to increase brand loyalty.
I want to add something now because I couldn't agree
Yes,
more.
well, I mean, Mr. Francis, this is right up your alleyway. I mean, you
Like I didn't
come
want to
on.
say because I hear people saying things in my mind. I just saying preach. That's so true. You know, it's like an old top to down kind of approach where you have to show us something shiny. We have to feel the hype, and that's where the ambassador come in and whatever new product and app and convenience and all these things come together. But the main thing is that once you have us, because once you have that, like hype dies. You know, you can go from one thing to the next thing. That's where you lose the brand loyalty. But when you have substance is completely different. Substance will keep us. That's why you see people going back to certain events because they know that once they go there, they're gonna have a good time. So for any corporate company, finance company, especially Eastern, once you are able to communicate that, hey, we have the hype, and then they come in and they say, wow, we also have all the substance, and then you understand specifically what our issues are and I think it's a real weird thing for millennials because we, especially the middle to early, we don't know what we don't know. But when we find out what we know, we lose our minds because we realize we're very much behind, and then we go into overdrive. So I read articles, I'm obsessed with millennials and everything, and I see crazy articles like because of us going through different recessions. I mean, COVID is happening right now in our generation as well. We are set up in a way where if we don't take control of our finances, when we get to that later age of retirement and want to buy homes and all these different things, we are going to be in a very tough spot. It's have articles out there saying that the baseline for saving should be 10%, 15%. They say millennials, you only need to be saving 35%. They say you need to be investing heavily in your insurance. You need to be putting in that nest egg, because if you don't, you're basically going to put yourself in a position where you're going to be working maybe until you die, and most millennials do not know that. So if you can communicate this to them in a way where it makes sense and they say, wow, I did not know that, especially if you have ambassadors who are going through this whole process, who are there with them in the process, as opposed to, because millennials, we're a little difficult. We don't like to see somebody older or authority figure telling us something. We like to see somebody on our own level saying, hey, buddy,
come on, I got this.
It resonates more with us. And to me, if Eastern starts doing these things and I see it in somebody work you're doing, you will take over.
And of course, Ms. Francis. Oh, sure, please, Mrs. Beniku, go right ahead.
Just add a little bit to what Mr. Francis was saying, going back to the point where the school program, where the youth officers have been visiting. Our intention actually is to make Eastern a household name, and we want to start early. The earlier we start, the better the long-term return, right?
Yes.
So That is
definitely.
basically added to what you and Dr. Durham are saying. And cheers.
Yeah, but I see you clapping there, and I was looking at Miss Francis, and she was just like a little cheerleader in the back there as Mr. Francis was talking. So, Miss Francis, you want to add your 2 cents on this topic, yeah, real quick?
I got very excited when Mrs. Durham started and she was like, hallelujah. And then Mr. Francis jumped in and I was like, amen. And then Miss Durham, I was like, whoa, we're on fire today. Because
Let's go. We're going to have some church up in here. We're going to have some church up in here.
Because, you know, and one of these things I was brought up was COVID. You know, our environment right now is very volatile. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's happening now. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. The country's slowly opening back up. But, you know, after that period, where does everybody go? All the people who were laid off, all these contracts that, you know, had to end, what happens next, right? And Eastern really has an opportunity to drive the importance, right, of financial planning, because rightfully so, you know, as millennials, we kind of found out a little later down the road. And so now we have to kind of play catch up. We don't want that for our children, right? So we need to start there. Definitely, as Mrs. Durham said, the earlier the better. We need to demystify the fact that this starts later on in life. It really doesn't. Because why? You see, I fancy, right? I want a standard of living that nice. But when I retire, if I didn't save anything, if I didn't, you know, put retirement plans in place like an annuity or something, and NIS decide, well, that's it there for y'all. What am I gonna do? I wouldn't be able to maintain that standard of living that I've been enjoying for so many years. My child may have to, you know, clear their bank account to bury me. That's not the experience I want to have or want my family to have. So definitely the earlier the better. And I love that Eastern is going back into the schools. And I would also recommend that, you know, Cipriani College, with their studies, Eastern really has an opportunity because, you know, they look at cooperatives. They'll have an opportunity to, you know, at least try to or lobby for having an influence in the syllabus there, where you push more on, you know, financial cooperatives, financial planning, all those different things, and have a workshop. And when I mean workshop, I don't mean a seminar where we sit down and talk. We ain't talking no more. Right? We have to move the conversation into action because millennials like, show us how to do it. Don't tell us what to do. Show us how to do it. Sit with us. Say, this is a budget. This is your plan. This is where your money will go. This is how. So the same book that we started off with, you know, many years ago, let's break it down into an Excel spreadsheet. Let me see where my money is going, because what you're gonna find is that already at the UE level, right, persons are already in debt. Why? Because they have a student loan. And if they don't have a student loan, it may mean that their parents or grandparents or some sort of guardian is paying for that. But the minute they get a job, the loan going on them. So before they start, they're in debt. You understand? So you have an opportunity there now to say, even though this is your situation, let me show you how you could, you know, you could backfill. How you could take even a little $50 and put it here and see where your money goes. Where you could put it in your Jade account, so you know you get a little interest extra because it's in your Jade, right? And guess what? $25 is to put towards your mortgage because you have a vision of owning a home. $5 is for this. You know, it might sound small, but these things add up. And you want a new phone, no friend, you cannot go in your account and just take out your money and buy the new phone. You put $1 towards that because that's not a priority right now. Help them to map their process, map their plan, and you will really see returns because they want that personal touch on how to do it.
I couldn't have said it any better. Hey, is this Miss Vincent?
It is. I am
in
here.
the flesh. Welcome to join us. Yes, Miss Vincent. I'm glad
I just wanted to add to what Bernice was saying, because, you know, many times people will come to us not knowing where to go. They have this debt and they have that debt and they want to do this and they would like to do that. And many people have grand plans with no idea how to accomplish it. So what we try to do, particularly when you come into us, we have a discussion with our members, particularly when we realize we have youth members coming in, people who are now going into the workforce, people who are in university. We try to have that discussion with them. What are your plans? What are your short-term and long-term goals? What are your means to accomplish this? Let us look at what is best for you. Everything we do really goes on a case-by-case basis, because your situation may not be mine. I may have come from a different background where I didn't have to pay for my schooling. I didn't have to pay for my first car. I don't need to find a down payment for my first house. But there are persons who will come from the ground up and they say, well, I have been working since I was 15, so what shall I do? And we try to give that guidance. As Tiffany was saying, as Renita was saying, you know, $25, $10 every month, every week, it may not seem like much. The greatest thing for me personally, when I see a person who would have opened an account from the youth accounts from school days, and that account was opened in 1986, and I look and I see how consistent the saving is, that always redounds to the benefit of the person coming to do a transaction with us, particularly for lending. Because we see that commitment, we see the consistency, and we could work. The greatest factor is your character. Anytime you're looking for a facility, the greatest factor is your character. And when we see that consistency and that commitment to the credit union, we could do wonders. We will move mountains at any point in time for you all.
You know, Miss Vincent, I think, you know, the forces were working in your favor.
Yeah, come in good time.
Preach. You're preaching to us right here. And I just want you to add something. I see I have a question here from one of the members of the audience, Miss Amy Victor. She's asking, what mentorship does Eastern Credit Union offer right now? As you're on fire right now, could you continue with this, Miss Vincent?
Add some gasoline. So, as I would have said earlier, you know, we try to have that discussion with persons coming in from the jump. So when you come into us and you sit with one of the member relations officer, you sit with a credit officer, we look at what is your unique position, and we chart your course with you. What do you want to do? Full disclosure is always helpful. You know, as millennials, we don't everybody know business. So sometimes we have two loans down the road and we have something else, but we will only tell you about one and see what you will tell me. It helps to be.
Don't forget the thing by coach. So yeah, I know that.
I want to tell you about quotes. Yeah, but all these things help when we really know what is the true picture of where you are at. Then we could really start to work with you, and people will be surprised when you give that information upfront, how we are able to really paint a broad picture for you and maybe give you a direction that you didn't know you would have had before. In addition to that, we have a business center that is now opening. We have entrepreneurship programs for persons who are looking for financing for entrepreneurship ventures. And we partner with Export TT, who helps to build your export capacity. We partner with the entrepreneurship unit of the management studies at UE, so they give guidance and mentorship for young and upcoming entrepreneurs. And they will give you the guidelines. I've said it many times from what we see coming into us. Many persons who venture to be entrepreneurs have the technical skills. So they know how to do what they do really well. So they could sew really well, they could build really well. They know how to do what they do really well, but they may not know about the administrative side of running your business, building that capacity, reaching your target audience, understanding who your audience is and playing to them. And that unit really helps to build that capacity for young entrepreneurs and let them see the holistic picture. It is not just about putting a product out there. It is about putting your product out there and managing your product for maximum productivity for you and profitability for you.
So our loans officers here at Eastern Credit Union, they are not their sole purpose is not only to provide you with this loan, but they are also like the first step in this whole financial molding situation that we are talking about here. So we will be able to add to give them this advice and guide them along the right path if they didn't already buy the book from Mr. Francis. Because we had to tie it in together. Okay, this is what is happening here.
This is true, and sometimes people take no or not necessarily a no. What you come to us with may not really work in your benefit, and sometimes look at the positives or the other avenues that could help you to achieve what you want to achieve. So
Yes.
they come and say, I need X. But when we sit with them and we look at where they're at, sometimes X may be great, but you need to work with A and B before you get to X. And we will help to guide you through the entire alphabet to reach the Z, where you may not have seen yourself at Z.
I add something.
So, of course, Mr. Francis, please.
I love that she brought up entrepreneurship and you have a whole unit just for that. Because me personally, I believe that millennials are the entrepreneurial generation, not because of want, but because of need. Because we are noticing that our income is not enough for our lifestyle. So we do something on the side. But then we also have the problem of there's like a millennial myopia where we can only see so far into the future. So we'll start the business, have the product, make the money, and that's as far as we see. We don't see, okay, what happens next? How far will this go? How big will this go? How do I keep up with my books? So, for instance, I want to start a company, but I have a link so I can talk to different people, and I will well research what I'm doing before I get there. A lot of millennials not doing that. They will just start to sell things. They're not writing receipts. They're not doing anything. Not putting anything away. They're not building the infrastructure. None of that. They just say, I need money now. I start to make it. And I think it's great to have a whole unit that can answer those questions because trust me, I know there's a lot of questions out there for as a millennial, especially when you are trying to supplement an income and you have something that you're good at and you're making money off of it, what to do with the money and what to do with the business. So I'll talk to you for that.
And I appreciate that. And I want to just turn to Mrs. Beniku real quick with this. Now, as we're talking about these whole entrepreneurs and starting their own business and, getting the foundation and all kind of thing, we now have to look at the flip side of it. So this entrepreneur, they have their whole thing laid out. But now we have to think about, is Eastern going to be offering any sort of debt consolidation loans to our members? We have good jobs, but we also have bad credit. How do I make that transition? Is it still something that is viable for us as a member of Eastern Credit Union or as an entrepreneur? What guidance? Nothing was taught to us about things like credit score and how to save our money properly and how to keep our financials in order. How does Eastern Credit Union play a role in this?
Can you repeat the question? Part of it was distorted.
Sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Are you hearing it? Could you repeat the last part of the question?
Yeah, I was
part
just
of what you said was a bit distorted.
it was a little bit distorted. Yeah, I was just saying that, nothing was taught to the millennials. Nothing was taught to us as young people in order to have a good credit score or in order for us to keep good financials. We didn't learn about that. We just know we want to start our own business, right? As Ms. Vincent would have said, I could so good. So you know what? I want to start doing more thing here. But how does Eastern guide these members along this path?
Okay, once a member expresses an interest, right, we would invite them in for a consultation, get as much information from them as possible, right? Start them off from scratch. Where exactly would you like to be? What it is you wanted to do? If it is they have bad credit, first of all, we would sensitize them to the importance of having good credit and how to get there. So in terms, we would assess their current financial status. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll assess their current financial status and map out a way to take them forward. So if it is, for example, they have not taken a loan before and they have some cash. It's dropping and coming back.
Hi, Nkise?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what happened
we're
there.
hearing you. Yeah, we're hearing you perfectly. Okay, it seems to have a little technical difficulties there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Ms. Vincent, I just want to turn this.
With that question that Nkisi was trying to answer, that consolidation really, we work with our members regardless of their financial position. As I was saying earlier, sometimes what some persons may take as a no is not necessarily a no, but a guide. So you come to us and you have that bad debt, but you want to purchase a phone. We may need to look at correcting your credit history, your credit score, before you can purchase that phone. So we sit with you, we look at what you outline as your current debts. Of course, we will have platforms where we can see what all your debts are, who do you have outstanding, what by installments and things like that. We look at what you have at the credit union and what you may be able to bring and offer in addition to what you have already on your accounts. And then we consolidate all of that to put you in a better financial position. That may mean that your payments may be reduced, the term may be reduced, you may have a reduction in interest, anything along those lines. But we really do work with each member on a case-by-case basis and try to put them in a better financial footing than they were prior to coming into us.
Okay, and that is that I like how you just ease that in there. I just wanted to switch a little bit to Dr. Durham. You know, talking about this whole process that we're doing here. Something is Nkise okay there? What's happening?
Patience.
Oh, and Mr. Regis. Yeah, we're getting a tour real quick. So, Dr. Durham, educational programs and workshops for teenagers as well as adult members in terms of financial literacy, which include things like the credit score and things that we were just having a little discussion about there. Again, the marriage between those type of things and Eastern Credit Union, how do you see that happening? How can this be achieved in a really positive manner for both the credit union and the member?
Well, I think, I know that Eastern has historically hosted SEA workshops and so on and provided courses for its membership on credit union management, as well as I do know that, and I would have benefited as well when I served on the supervisory committee. Eastern does also provide orientation training for persons aspiring to serve on the board and so on. But because we're still not sure what the post-COVID scenario would look like, some consideration would have to be given by the education committee and the organization as a whole on how to engage the millennial membership from an educational standpoint. And one creative way of doing that is to begin by gathering data. And this could be done again by a simple poll on your social media platform. So you're asking your members whether they prefer a free online course in credit union management or budgeting, or whether they prefer this style of presentation, a free webinar to learn about the different committees and their functions in the governance of the organization. Another option is to provide a virtual platform where the members of any age group, they can simulate different aspects of money management linked to their credit rating or savings accumulation. And we know people do exercises and quizzes online to find out what type of Kardashian they are or what type of pasta they are. So we must get them engaged in this way, and we must assume they will participate. If you will take time off to find out which Kardashian you look like, I think people would be willing to take a quiz to find out how they're doing with their credit score and so on. And
Yes.
prior to COVID, I know the nature of learning and educating was already evolving and becoming so much more diverse. So I think Eastern, as well as its membership, has to be responsive to that new normal of virtual teaching and learning. And it might also be good to explore the possibility of a mandatory virtual buddy program between your teenagers and the beneficiaries of scholarships and bursaries going forward, whereby the latter could educate teenagers about the credit union philosophy and movement. And the same model could be replicated between board members or executive managers and the scholarship recipients, who, by the way, it would be very nice for the executive management or the board members to mentor and groom them into becoming a part of the future leadership of the organization. So this is how I envision it unfolding. A lot will have to be done virtually or via online platforms.
And especially with this whole COVID situation here, we are now actually being forced into that direction. I mean, we may have
Absolutely.
wanted to go into that direction, but probably years down the line. But now this is how we have to do it. Mr. Francis,
Exactly.
you wanted to add something there on that?
Yeah, while she was speaking, it just came to me.
Yes.
Just going the fact that millennials, and this mainly speaks for the middle and early, because the late millennials, you're already buying houses and have more things down and more or less we would. But back to the fact that we don't know, we don't know until we know it, and then we realize it's urgent. Now, if you could find a way to kind of pop that bubble, I feel like you'd have all the real estate, because like as a personal development coach, it's really hard for me. Well, it was at the beginning to get clients, because I know what the issues are and I know how detrimental it is, but they don't understand it, and they only understand it when their life is in dire stress, like their life falling apart. Oh, I need a coach. But the thing with finances now, you don't want that to happen, because my life is in, a bad place financially. You might be at a stage now where you can't really do much because you've reached a certain age. But if you can show them now, like, if these are your goals, then this is what you should be doing. And then you show them that, wow, I'm actually not doing any of these things. It's like an instant wake up call to, okay, now I understand why this is so important. Because as much as millennials want to learn and we'll do the Kardashian thing because it's fun and all these little stuff, we are very easily distracted because we don't want to deal with what's going on in front of us. But the minute we see that something that we want is in jeopardy, especially if we can tangibly make the connections between our current situation and achieving that thing, is when we start to say, wow, okay, now it's time to act. Especially if you can show them how they can do it on their terms. Because I think this is the tough transition for us millennials, is that we want to build wealth and we want to own these different things, but we also want to uphold our regular high consumption lives. And because the media portrays it in a way where this is something that can be done, we hold on to it as, I can do both. But the reality is we definitely can't do both. And the ones that can do both are in a very, very, very minute percentage. So it's once that bubble can be popped, the sky is really the limit.
So what pops this bubble, Mr. Francis? Is the onus on the individual?
Now the thing is, it's rough, because you.
That's all. I feel. I could take some free notes here, Mr. Francis, because this.
But like, it's tough, because again, they don't know what they don't know, so you can't expect that they're just gonna wake up one morning and say, "Wow, I want to own a house, but I'm not saving anything." But if you put it in there, if you put it in front of them, and this is the beauty of social media and the technology, you don't have to spend much to put something in front of someone who you want to see a specific message. Now, the only challenge is to meet them on their level where it is something that they actually want to see. And there's so many creative ways to go about it. Like, just off the top of my head, you could do like a simple video showing the parallels of, you live your life one way, high consumption, you're just going with the flow, you get a paycheck, you spend it out, you get a paycheck, you spend it out, and see where that trajectory takes you, which for most is, they now buy a car, they get tied into the payments, they have to struggle to get by, they get married, they have a child, they're trapped into like providing, and it's tough. And that's one parallel. And the next parallel is, you're doing your hyperconsumption, but then you realize, maybe I should ask someone for help, which of course could be Eastern Credit Union. Sit down with the person, and the change that they're making is not even drastic. It is 10% goes here, 10% goes here, 5% goes here. And it's crazy how a simple act like that can change the whole trajectory of their life. Where now, instead of this struggling to get by, I can now afford my home. I can now afford these car payments. I can now afford schooling for my child, who I was not even thinking about back then. But somebody put it on my radar, and I was like, wow, okay, this is something I should be focusing on. Because again, we like the shiny. You have to give us the shiny. But once you catch us with the shiny, you have to give us that substance, and it's the substance that will always keep us. Always, always, always.
Now, Mr. Francis, you made a very important statement there in terms of the individual asking someone for that help. Now, we proud, we have this under control. I don't want to be able to, I go in by a life coach, boy. No. I have this. I know what it is I do in here. So how is something that is embedded in us? But is that just a state of maturity that the person needs to reach a level of maturity that they need to reach at, hey, things not really going the way I wanted to go, I really need some help. But society kind of frowns on people who ask for help, especially male. We are proud species. So what advice could you give to an individual in that quandary right now? I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. I don't know how to achieve it, but I'm too proud to contact Mr. Francis for some assistance.
And the funny thing is, there's actually something as an organization that can be done to help that person. Because the issue is that they are too proud to ask for help. But if you make putting yourself out there in that way a norm, then that's not an issue anymore. So if we have prominent people talking about their struggles when it came with money and what they did to get out of that, and that becomes a norm. Like, I did something so simple. I started a challenge called My Millennial Story, because I found that I keep hearing these amazing millennial stories, and I think you should share it, because you have no idea who's experiencing this and how you could impact their lives positively. People started fighting on the videos. I get like a 5-10 persons put up the video, and if you see the comments on these videos, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going through this. I've been going through this. I didn't know anybody else was there with me. And the thing is,
we just need to start, we just need somebody to start and then we'll piggyback on it.
Just need to light the match.
Yeah.
And yes, because they're 100% sure there are so many people going through these simple problems, but they just want to know that somebody that they look up to, somebody that they know is also going through it as well, so that they don't have to feel bad about saying, hey, I need help. Because you have to remember, we grew up in a generation of social media, and you only put up your best self on social media. You only put up your win, put up what you want people to see. Most are not going to put up the times when they were struggling and when it wasn't good and how they had to overcome. Nah, they putting up the wins. So this is a conditioning from a long time. So to say that somebody's just gonna break out of that, yes, it's maturity can get you there. Yes, urgency and like dire stress can get you there, but that's going to be such a minority that you want to push the majority along by saying, hey, it's okay to actually share that you need help, because all these other people, they also need help. And they're also successful. Some are not successful, but we are all similar in that we do need that assistance. So it's okay to ask for help. Even if you make it anonymous, of course, you can also make it anonymous. I'm just all the options out there just to make life real easy.
Yeah, okay, I like that.
Chime in on that a little bit. Because I think that Mrs. Durham brought up that was really important was where you start, and she mentioned research. Doing, a poll, some sort of questionnaire, some sort of survey, and that's really going to help you, help Eastern Credit Union to be able to understand what the need is. To really need to understand and analyze what is the need of the millennials. And it's great because you all could start in-house. You'll have a number of millennials that work with Eastern Credit Union. Start at home. Understand what your family is going through there. your Eastern family, your Millennial family, and then try to take it outside to see if, if there's some sort of correlation. Is it the same thing that they're experiencing inside and outside? The Millennials here, the Millennials out there, and really start to understand how you can craft something that addresses the need. Customer education is always key. If they're not educated, you're not going to get anywhere. They need to understand not just where they are, but what Eastern can do for them. And what Mr. Francis said was that, you're making that relationship easier so that I'm not saying that I need help. I'm not coming to you to say I need help, but rather you're going in their faces and say, hey, whether you need help or not, I'm here to help you. So that they no longer feel uncomfortable in having that conversation. It's like you're taking the ball away from them to ease that stress and that discomfort, and then giving it back to them when they're ready to say are comfortable to come to you.
Yes.
So I really want you all to take into consideration the analysis part of it, because you could build something amazing and it will not work. Why? Because it does not address the need. So start with the need, design, develop something that really, really gets to the meat of it, and then your implementation will flow through a little bit easier because you're on track. Always think with the end in mind. What does Eastern want to achieve by doing all of this, by having this webinar? What are you trying to achieve by talking to the Millennials? Always start with the end in mind and then start crafting the process from there.
From there. Dr. Durham, I mean, you have to put in your 2 cents here. I mean, come on.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm thinking podcast is an option. The traffic is so phenomenal. I mean, when we get back to normal, I would much rather listen to a podcast from Eastern telling me how I can acquire a home or a car rather than listen to who to flush down the toilet bowl or whatever the program is.
Come on.
That is me. So I think as Ms. Francis was saying, making that content available so then you don't have persons having to come to you who are already afraid to ask for help. And because they're seeing everyone else living such glamorous lifestyles online, they think that, things just fall from the sky and things can be all peachy. But if you have a podcast with some of your youth members or your Millennials sharing about real stories about their journeys and who are not afraid to open up about their struggles or about their socioeconomic backgrounds and what they sacrifice, because the sacrifice is never there in the pictorial representations that we see online. So we really have to make things that are very much realistic. And I think now you really have an opportunity making this webinar available after for those who weren't able to tune in. These simple things, people always go, normally if I have a topic that I probably don't know about, the first thing I would do, I would look for a TED Talk. So if I know I go into a seminar or a conference, I want to be able to engage persons who are there. So I'd look at a TED Talk. So if Eastern can do those things, I remember seeing some focus groups being done by Eastern, and that really appealed to me because I saw other Millennials like myself, and I remember seeing Miss Vincent there in the focus group, and a lot of what she was saying and the other Millennials were doing, it was very relatable. So as opposed to hearing an Eastern ad when I'm listening to the morning show on my way to work, which I like hearing, but if I see Miss Vincent in a focus group talking about some realistic and real scenarios, I would much more appreciate that than listening to the ad interrupting the comedy and so on that that JW and Blaze are putting on.
Well, Senator Williams, ma'am, please. Senator Williams.
Yes. Senator Williams and Blaze.
Senator Williams. So I just shifted it again, I like to keep the ball rolling. Mrs. Benico, you settled down now? You back with us fully?
Yes, I am.
All right, lovely. Just checking, Ms. Vincent, I just want to ask you if it is you can enlighten our members, what are some of the investment opportunities that are available to them now at Eastern Credit Union?
Well, first of all, we have our main product, which is the shares. The share product not only gives you a return on interest, but it also works as collateral and capital if it is you wish to seek financing further down. You also have our Jade account, which is really catered to the youth or a particular age bracket, where you can get a higher interest rate as opposed to the regular deposits. And it is flexible. So it's not like a fixed deposit, which we also have, which is a great investment for persons to get into if they're looking at that long-term investment. But the Jade account really is flexible, that you can put in the money, and let's say, God forbid, you walk down, you're cooking and you burn your hand, you're trying one of those little tasty videos that you see, and you burn your hand because you're not a chef, and you need to go and see a doctor quick. You have the Jade account that you could take out that money from there without any penalties, without anything keeping you back from now reinvesting in that account. Those are some of the basic investments that we have right now, and is open to any age group. So not only millennials, the Gen Z generation can also tie into all of these things. It's always really exciting to hear someone come in and they be like, I used to have an account from primary school. I wonder if it's still open. And then when you check, it's like, oh, it's still open. I have money. And you tell them how much it have, and they're really excited because everybody likes to find money. So, we work as best as possible with everyone that we have, particularly the younger generation, to really start building that nest egg from young and looking at ways that it could benefit them in the future.
Right. I like that, but I just want to say, Miss Vincent, for during your response there, I started to think if you're really speaking about me with the burn hand cooking thing. I was feeling a bit attacked. So let's just
COVID. We realize we have some real home chefs, that some successful and some not successful.
Yeah, I was feeling a little bit attacked there. So, let's.
We don't.
Okay, Mrs. Benny Coon, you're back with us, yes? Yes.
Yes,
So I have a question from the audience. Non-contract workers, like those people who do TT ride share and those kind of services, are they able to access loans at Eastern Credit Union? Because they have no contract with them. They sign up with whatever company and they're just doing transport in person from point A to point B. How is Eastern Credit Union accommodating these members?
So what I would say, we would treat these persons on a case-by-case basis. There is no umbrella answer for that. I can't say yes, because each person's situation would be a bit different. So I would invite them to come in for an assessment.
So they will fall under the business unit per se. Is that something that the business unit will undertake, or they could just make the necessary appointments at any one of our branches?
I would prefer that they make the necessary appointments from one of the other branches, because I believe TT Rideshare, someone owns it and they would be working for someone, and it's not so much an entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah.
Right, so I'd recommend that an appointment be set up with either the branch, or we also have field officers as well that are able to have discussions with these persons.
So just for general information purposes, if any member would like to get any further information about Eastern Credit Union and the products and services that we offer, feel free to contact our call center at 800-4ECU. That's 800-4328, and any one of our representatives will be able to assist you with whatever questions and direct you to whichever branch or which department to answer these questions that you may have. Unfortunately, this brings us to the end of today's webinar, and before I invite each one of our panelists to give their closing remarks, I'd just like to remind the audience that our next webinar will be on next week, Tuesday, the 26th at 5 p.m., where we will be discussing our online banking platform and walking our members through the actual process to sign up for this. So, Mrs. Beniku, I will give you the kickoff or the lead off to give your final remarks.
Okay, I just want to say that this entire session has been totally enlightening. As Mr. Francis would have said, what stood out for me, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yes.
So at the end of it, at the end of the day, we need to gather feathers, as the young people would say now, swallow our pride, right? And be open to learning more, to enhance our skills, to develop ourselves holistically, right? To keep up with the times that we're coming into. Yes.
Yes.
That's it,
Thank
basically.
you. Thank you so much. And I must applaud you for soldering through all these little technical difficulties. You know, I saw Miss Vincent, she was dying with laughter as he was going through that. But Miss Vincent, you too also had some technical difficulties, but you also soldiered through. So I'm going to open the floor to you to have your closing remarks.
Yeah, so this session really is a learning and guiding process. I think Eastern, we could really benefit from sessions like this, hearing the feedback from our members, because the feedback is very important to us. As a millennial in the organization, there's so much you could do as one individual, but our member feedback kind of supporting what is being said and what we put forward to really reach to that larger demographic that we have right now, because millennials are the persons running the show at present, or millennials are at the helm of everything that we have going on in our country right now, regionally and globally. So to really get that millennial input is really important. Our members coming in and providing that feedback and understanding us as well. Just before I had the technical difficulties, not to stray too much, I heard the talk about legislation, and that is very important. Our legislation at present really restricts us from doing particular types of transactions. But as we come out of that and as we move forward and we advocate for some change in the legislation, we really would be able to provide the products and services that our members and millennials will really prefer. And the feedback that we get now would really guide how we shape that legislation to work to the benefit of everyone. So thank you for having me on the panel.
Thank you very much, Miss Vincent. Mr. Francis, your closing remarks, please.
Almost forget to unmute myself there. Wow. Yeah. So this is just a message to all millennials who are listening, especially who are within that early to middle. Solve that problem that you don't know that you have, the problem of not knowing what you don't know, by simply just speaking to somebody who has the knowledge. If that means you go to Eastern Credit Union and you just have a simple conversation with something, a conversation is free. But a conversation could literally change your whole life, because the worst thing that you can do is stay asleep at the wheel and just let your life go wherever it will go. Because you don't want to be that person who now is older, probably getting married, wants to organize their life, and is restricted because of things that they did not do when they were younger or had the ability to, based upon like ignorance, right? So if anything I can share that can help you, it's really be proactive about your life. And that means that you, instead of maybe scrolling on Instagram for the next half an hour, maybe spend a little 10 minutes, watch a little YouTube video, because all the knowledge is out there. Literally everything you need to know is one click away. Dedicate that 10, 20, 30 minutes to read that book, watch that video, listen to that podcast, because that could be that one piece of information that snaps you out of your bubble and gets you active and moving towards a future that you want for yourself.
Thank you so much, Mr. Francis. Moving swiftly across to Miss Francis, your closing remarks, please.
I know that, sometimes as millennials, we come out of school, whether it be a bachelor's or master's, we feel we know everything. So we don't want to ask for help. We don't know, nobody must tell us that we're not good enough because we finish and theory is everything. Take the time to understand the experience, go through the process, and there is merit in stooping to conquer. I know we don't always like to ask for help, but we need to ask for the help sometimes. As Mr. Francis said, be proactive. This is your life, this is your journey. Take it into your own hands and understand that you're not doing it alone. your story may not be the only story like that, might be unique to just you. Share, be open, and lead your way forward while still helping others to pave their own path.
Thank you very much, Ms. Francis. Dr. Durham, you get to summarize all what was said by our fellow panelists. Give your closing remarks and send us off. I turn it over to you.
Wow, thank you. I just want to applaud the efforts by Eastern to remain current and to remain connected, most importantly, during this pandemic period. And I really hope that you all will continue leading the way post-COVID-19. I know that when everyone gets busy, we may not be as attuned to the online environment as we are now, but I strongly want to encourage you to continue. And based on our discussion today, I would also want to encourage Eastern to act as if every millennial member fits the stereotypes that exist and be in a position to respond to those stereotypes. So if the data and the evidence points toward the fact that millennials are not as financially disciplined as baby boomers, help them to achieve that financial discipline. We are impatient and so on. Improve your online platforms and your mobile banking platforms. Personally, in one of my banking agencies, when I log in on my computer, I have different credentials to when I log in on my phone. And it's really annoying to me. So some of those things, and it's not Eastern, but some of these things, going forward, you can look at. Your turnaround time for loans, all that is linked to the impatience of millennials, because they will say the reality is that your closest competitor now, I think, Eastern is out of the credit union league, strictly speaking. Your closest competitor is the bank, because Eastern has become so large and so diverse now. So you really have to create services and products that will appeal to those that are turning to the banks. If you think millennials spend all their time on social media, invest more time in creating content that you disseminate by these platforms. And last but by no means least, Ms. Francis would have alluded to it internally. I think if you have at least one millennial at every level of decision making or leadership in your organization, then 75% of your challenges would have been solved. So that's it. You can creatively tackle your challenges by tapping into some of your millennial minds within the organization. Thanks once again for the opportunity and all the best.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Durham, for summarizing everything and giving your closing comments. Again, just want to remind all our members that our next webinar, in keeping with what Dr. Durham has said, is on Tuesday, the 26th of May at 5 p.m., where we will be discussing our online platform or online banking platform. So taking heed in what you're saying, and we already put things in place, and you can rest assured that Eastern Credit Union will continue to lead the way. Thank you once again, and have a good evening.